Stand by. Roll sound, please. Turn over.
65, take 2.
Action.
The classic legend of the Headless Horseman meets the dark vision of director Tim Burton in Sleepy Hollow.
It's a fantastic story, somewhat macabre, certainly very unusual.
I've always wanted to do a fairy tale, and this is like one of our few American fairy tales.
The Western Woods is a haunted place where brave men will not venture.
It's a horror film, it's a love story, it's a funny comedy. A lot of times you don't know whether to laugh or whether you're scared to death.
It's a type of movie that I used to like to watch all the time and actually made me want to make movies.
For those people who may know the story of Sleepy Hollow, you don't. This is scary.
And now, go behind the scenes to explore the filmmaking secrets of Sleepy Hollow. Meet the cast, live the legend, witness the stunts, and experience the state-of-the-art special effects.
Murder! The Horseman killed again!
All right, let's go.
Director Tim Burton, who brought his unique imagination to such films as Beetlejuice, Batman, and Edward Scissorhands, travels back in time to tell the haunting legend of Sleepy Hollow.
3 persons have been murdered there with the head lopped off.
It's one of the first American horror stories or folk tales, fairy tales. And like any good fairy tale, it's sort of part of your subconscious.
I thought it was sort of creepy. I always remember hearing it, even from like nursery school, having it read to me.
It's also one of those famous Halloween stories, so yeah, we grew up with it.
All right, let's try it.
It had a good, healthy mix of excitement and slightly scary, but funny all at the same time. And I think that that's something that is always interesting, trying to mix all of those things together. So it's something that's a fun thing to try to do.
And action.
At the center of the story is Ichabod Crane, a constable from New York City who is sent on a special mission.
First meet Ichabod, his superiors send him to Sleepy Hollow to investigate these murders.
A lot of people are dying, and they're dying in a very particular way. They're having their heads cut off rather cleanly.
Their heads were not found severed. Their heads were not found at all.
The heads are gone.
Taken by the Headless Horseman.
He's a rational man. He doesn't believe in ghosts, and he thinks he's going to discover who's been cutting people's heads off. And it has to be somebody, and there has to be a good reason for it.
The assassin is a man of flesh and blood, and I will discover him.
Ichabod has all these ideas about experimental crime solving. He knows how to find blood with these special powders.
This is most irregular, Constable.
And doing an autopsy, which at the time was not widely accepted.
She'll need to operate immediately.
Operate? She's dead.
When we say operate, we mean, of course, I will need the operating table.
Ichabod, he's a character that lives basically inside of his head versus a character with no head. And that's probably the strongest appeal to the story for me, is that you always want to have 2 good adversaries.
And cut.
For Burton, part of the appeal of the project was the opportunity to reunite with Depp, his leading man from Edward Scissorhands and Ed Wood.
Johnny, he's just great. This is the 3rd time I've worked with him, and each time it's different, and I just enjoy his wanting to always do something different.
And Johnny.
The attacker rode Nazareth down, turned his horse, came back to clean the head.
In playing Ichabod, Depp was inspired by films and actors of the past.
I used to watch all kinds of horror films when I was a little kid. I loved them. I was obsessed with them. And I wanted to recreate that classic style of horror film acting.
We must proceed by a process of elimination. I shall make a list of every man and woman in Sleepy Hollow.
As he begins his investigation, Ichabod is introduced to the townspeople, including Katrina Van Tassel.
Is it Theodore?
No, pardon, miss, I am only a stranger.
Then have a kiss on account. I am the daughter of the wealthiest man in Sleepy Hollow. And Brom Van Brunt, he and I are supposed to be getting married at some point. Like, it's just understood that one day we will get married.
He's the main suitor for Katrina, and then Ichabod Crane comes in, and he steals her away from me.
This is a departure from the book because Ichabod originally is a very ugly man. And we all know that Johnny Depp is, you know, not too bad looking. Oh, I should love the opera. And theaters. To go dancing, is it wonderful? My character's very romantic, and I like to read romance novels, and I believe in witchcraft.
You two believe that the Van Garretts were murdered by a headless horseman?
Not everyone here believes it is the horseman.
Good.
Some say it is the witch of the Western Woods who has made a pact with Lucifer.
In creating an overall look for the film, Burton brought his distinctive style to every detail.
Can I have a paintbrush too?
I think Tim, first and foremost, is an artist. He has an artist's approach to every facet of the film. Everything within the frame is of great importance to him. The composition of the shot, the colors, the movement.
Tim is so incredibly visual. His movies are just really beautiful, but strange. And for this kind of movie, that's exactly what it needs.
He has a gothic sensibility. I think anyone who's seen any of his films would say that that was the case.
Yeah, as I say.
I think with Tim, it's a lot about design and the art of it and creating a world. And with Sleepy Hollow, we wanted to make something that was very romantic, but it's also very stylized because there's supernatural elements and there are horror elements.
How often do I have to tell you there is no horseman? There never was a horseman. There never will be a horseman.
To create the film's gruesome beheadings, the filmmakers used the latest special effects and makeup techniques. The process began with making plaster casts of each victim.
They cover you up, and it feels like any minute they're gonna stick 2 straws up your nose and suck your brains out.
Once the duplicate heads were cast, the details were added.
All the heads are silicone painted. The hairs have been punched in individually. Eyeballs are put in. And we'll take teeth casts of the actors and then make acrylic teeth and fit them in. And each head will have this kind of gross muscle treatment with a spine, a throat, you know, skin.
The guys came in from special effects and said, "Oh, have you seen your head yet? It's great, look." And we pulled it out of a box. Well, I talk about intimations of mortality, you know. I've seen my head in somebody's hands.
For the actual decapitations, Burton added a distinctive touch.
Tim wanted to see the head spin around. So you have a head and shoulders piece that we do the head neck spinning thing, and then we cut to a wide shot, and that's a full body that's all held together with electromagnets. And we basically flip a switch, and the knees will buckle first, then the ankles, and then the waist and the arms will fall down. So we have a very, very natural look.
It was a horseman, a dead one, headless.
Of course it was. That's why you were here.
It's all true.
This telling of the legend explores the horseman's origins as a Hessian mercenary.
Unlike his compatriots, who came for money, the horseman came for love of carnage. He was infamous for riding his horse hard into battle, chopping off heads at full gallop.
I figure he's a little like me. After a day of chopping heads, he just goes home and has a nice dinner. But my forte seems to be psychotic, twisted people, and he's very like that.
The Hessian's terrifying facial features included teeth filed into razor-sharp points and supernatural eyes.
Keep looking all the way down.
Actor Christopher Walken was fitted with special contact lenses to create the effect.
They look fantastic. Sort of like Paul Newman.
The greatest challenge for Walken involved the scenes in which he was required to ride the Hessian's horse, Daredevil.
I come from New York City. I grew up right in Midtown. I don't know anything about horses. I've made some Westerns, but my experience with horses has not been good. I'm afraid of them, and they don't like me much. And I said that to him right away. I said, "The Headless Horseman, I can barely ride."
For some of Walken's more difficult riding shots, the filmmakers employed a device developed for a classic film from Hollywood's past.
Yeah, this was built for National Velvet for Elizabeth Taylor and some of the shots she had to do on that. And we've got hold of it, and we've just really brought it up to date, as it were. I mean, as it was mechanically 40 years ago, it was sound. There's nothing we could improve on it.
It'll be skinned and furred, and mechanically, it's going to be able to gallop, full gallop or canter. It'll have a radio-controlled head, so you'll get the full motion of a horse movement, and you get radio-controlled ears, eye blinks. The lips will move, so you get kind of a sneering thing. There'll be steam that can come out the nostrils on those cold, Sleepy Hollow nights.
In the climax to a brutal battle scene, the story of how the Hessian originally lost his head is revealed.
This butcher didn't finally reach his end until the winter of '79. They chopped off his head with his own sword. Now the Hessian wakes. He's on the rampage, cutting off heads where he finds them.
To create the mysterious world of Sleepy Hollow, Burton and his crew traveled to England, where they found the perfect backdrop for the story. Over a 3-month period, the entire community was built from the ground up. The design included a covered bridge, a church, numerous period structures, and a massive windmill. The farmland surrounding the town was stocked with hundreds of sheep, cows, and ducks who would reside on the premises during filming.
We were really transforming this hollow into a living town. One of the things that we were trying to do was inspire a sense of apprehension in the architecture of the place, that there is something wrong here, that there is a sense of foreboding and fear.
It's very magical, and it's wonderful looking. Everything about it is just really, really medieval.
It was something that was very true to the period. At the same time, kind of fairy tale-like or made up. Exactly sort of what you would imagine a Tim Burton village would be. Beautiful. I wanted to live there.
The town's in ferment. Reverend Steenwitz called a meeting in the church tonight. He's going to speak out against you.
As the story unfolds, the distrust between Ichabod and the townspeople grows deeper.
Everybody in this small community has something to hide. You know how difficult it is to hide anything in a small community. Everybody knows everybody else's business, but you don't know all of it. So it's a very paranoid place.
There is a conspiracy here, and I will seek it out!
There's a certain sort of ambiguousness about the characters that's kind of great, and there's a lot about these people that you don't know, which is kind of interesting.
Ready, and action!
The supporting cast of townspeople features a number of acclaimed actors, including Miranda Richardson, Ian McDiarmid, Michael Gambon, Richard Griffiths, Jeffrey Jones, and Michael Goff.
I suppose we're all eccentric in our various ways. I'm the least eccentric of them all, really.
He's chosen us funny people to play the part. I look slightly mad, don't I?
If this person who lays a hand on me will get a bullet!
We all look strange, and I suppose that's why we've been cast.
Together, they just create an interesting combination.
Oh, God!
To convey suspense and a sense of impending doom, Burton created a series of subtle visual effect shots.
What Tim asked us to do was put some kind of demonic faces in the fire to show that evil is present. And he wanted the faces in the fire to kind of erupt out of the fire and then disappear quickly. So it's a very subtle effect where you're almost not sure if you saw those faces or not.
I took the skull, which you will see in the movie, which is the Headless Horseman's skull. And so I pulled up the eyebrows to give it this demonic look, giving it a strong forehead, bringing up the corners of the mouth, and then pull the jaw around to actually continue to sculpt what would be the fire. So I knew that when the fire would come off, it would have an irregular shape. And here we've got not just one face, but there's a total of 13 in here. So I took that hero that I had, shrunk him down, and started putting more of his little brothers and sisters around here so that you get like a whole family of demonic faces coming out of the fireplace.
Some of the most complex effect shots involve the removal of the horseman's head.
Years ago, you got away with somebody dressed up in a suit, and they had fake shoulders that rested on top of their head. But if you look at it, the proportions of the horseman aren't quite right. His elbows are down towards his waist and things like that.
Instead, the filmmakers searched for a new way to convincingly create the headless effect. A special blue hood was created for the actor. The blue color is easily removed from the picture in the computer, leaving an empty hole. To fill in the space, a clean background plate was shot, but one element was still missing.
The horseman has a large cape and the collar that goes all the way around the back. So it was necessary to not only replace the background where his head would have been, but to also make a digital collar in the computer that was then matched to his movements.
The fact that we used a stunt person and literally erased his head, it plays like this is somebody that's living and breathing inside this outfit.
Horseman! He's coming round!
The horseman continues his reign of terror on the residents of Sleepy Hollow, at one point trapping Ichabod and Katrina in an abandoned windmill.
To the roof! I have an idea.
Burton saw this as an unusual location in which to stage a pursuit.
Would you lean on a little bit so you're that side of her?
Yeah.
My only image of windmills is like from the original Frankenstein, in the sense where it's somewhat symbolic of your mind somehow. I'm not quite sure how or why, but maybe it's just sort of the aimlessly spinning quality that represents my mind.
There isn't any windmill that looks like our windmill. The sails are just pure Tim Burton bat wings. There's a wonderful kind of shattered, abandoned mill feel to it, and I love the way it looks.
At over 5 stories high, the windmill set was too large to fit on any soundstage, so it was constructed outdoors.
We had to build this from scratch. The blades are about 1 ton each, so the whole thing, you're probably looking at about 4 or 5 tons. And the blades are controlled by a hydraulic motor, which we can operate from offset.
Let's start rotation, please. Start rotation. We ready?
Ready.
Rolling.
2, take 1. A and B cameras, come on, mark. Action!
The actors themselves would be riding the sails.
I don't have a great amount of experience with action, so for me it's fun, you know. It's a lot easier than learning your lines, I guess.
We had flaming sticks being shot down directly on top of us. They just filled this like funnel kind of thing, this huge funnel with sticks with flammable glue, and then they brought it up on a crane and they lit it on fire like above the camera, and we're like running.
To create the Sleepy Hollow score, Burton reunited with Danny Elfman, who composed the soundtracks for Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Edward Scissorhands, and Batman.
One of the nice things working with Tim is he never really talks in musical terms. He'll always talk in terms of how something makes him feel.
The strings should come right up. They should get very emotional right away.
These types of films are something that's more of a feeling than it is a verbalization. I think that's the power of horror movies, is that they hit you on an emotional level.
Once I saw the footage and the surreal quality of the landscape, to me the landscape dictated so much. I was often in Tim's films. I knew pretty early on that it was going to be heavy, yet I knew because it was Tim that it was going to be fun. I've been having a bit of fun with some of the low stuff. The scene where the horseman breaks into the family's house is quite chilling. I knew I wanted it to be intense. I knew that I would really enjoy that. And I did.
Determined to solve the mystery at all costs, Ichabod attempts to enlist the townspeople to search for clues.
Gentlemen, I need able men to go with me into the western woods. Who's with me?
The western woods just outside of town are a place that no one goes to. It's haunted. It's dark, twisted, the work of the devil. So the look of the film really gives you that impression of what it would be for the people who live in Sleepy Hollow, a place they don't go. It looks like poison.
The western woods were constructed on one of the largest sound stages in the world, which gave the filmmakers total control over the elements.
Smoke at the back, please.
We're dealing with atmosphere, smoke, fog, which are much easier to control on stage. And just the type of look that we wanted to get in terms of those old-fashioned horror movies where the stage look is part of the fabric of it.
Building the western woods, that was an enormous task in and of itself because we weren't creating a real forest. What we were doing was getting sort of a fierce thicket of trees.
When I saw it, I mean, it's so beautiful and everything's so intricate.
Amazing. It takes over a whole stage. It's mysterious, it's deep, it's up and down hills. All the trees are dead.
Quick and pace.
We really created the scary woods feeling that you get in the Grimm's fairy tales, where the little child in you is afraid to go into the woods.
The centerpiece of the forest is the horseman's resting place, a gateway between this world and the netherworld.
The Tree of the Dead. It does announce itself.
The Tree of the Dead is like a beautiful sculpture. It's very emotional. It's kind of enormous, gnarled thing. So it gives the impression that it's gonna reach out and snatch you up, you know, swallow you.
And Ichabod at one point finds a suture in the tree, and he sees a little trickle of what he thinks is sap, and ends up becoming blood.
The tree bleeds?
And he takes an axe to it, breaks it wide open, and he finds these heads.
One of the film's most startling effect sequences involved the horseman's emergence from his resting place.
What we are seeing here is a blue screen element of a horse and rider, which we're going to put in a shot of the horseman exiting the tree, which is essentially a gateway to hell. This is a background element to be used in this shot. It has the actors in the scene, but there's no horse or horseman. The next element that we're seeing here is an element of fog for this plate, both foreground and background fog. Also, he's kicking up a lot of leaves and things into the air. And in this shot, we didn't have a blue screen shot of an actual horse to use, so we had to create a horse in the computer as well as the headless horseman. So those are both digital elements in this shot. In addition to that, we wanted to have fog that's being disturbed by the horse and the rider as they come through the fog. And here's the final shot with all the elements put together. Here we can see the leaves being blown by the horse and rider, which were from the blue screen plate. You can also see in a subtle way the fog is being disturbed by the horseman as he rides through.
Ichabod?
For all of its horror, Sleepy Hollow also showcases Burton's distinctive sense of humor.
Do you know of the horseman, Mom? That'll be him, ma'am.
I don't know if any other director would have made this movie as tongue-in-cheek as he's sort of making it. And that just works so much better.
I think humor is very important to Tim. He's in fact a very funny guy.
Ready for a little blood test?
Tim, I think anytime it's possible to splatter Johnny with blood, he, takes the opportunity very happily.
It's bleeding.
There's a great sense of humor and enjoyment on the set. He seems to enjoy everything so much, and that relaxes everybody.
He really loves making movies, and he gets excited about it, and seeing him get excited about it makes you excited about it.
Turn over!
144 Apple, take 6. Action.
The film features a number of action set pieces.
We've done a hell of a lot of action. We've got all kinds of sword fighting. We have a fantastic sequence down in the church, and we'll be flying another guy out through the window.
Sir, you're not dead.
Not yet. It's a really brutal, really physical, really intense movie.
Where are we going? Anywhere but here.
One of the most complex scenes was a coach chase through the western woods.
The horseman is chasing Ichabod, Katrina, and young Maspat through the forest, which we've built on the stage.
The scene would take 3 weeks to shoot. Planning for the numerous stunts began several months earlier when the horses went into training.
This is Daredevil. This is the lead horse. We've got 2 of these that we've purchased from Seville in Spain. And they're just in the process now of having all the tricks taught them, the rears, the lay downs, the gallop on the spot and everything else. It takes 2 years to train those properly for a film. But these boys are good. They've got brains, these Spanish horses. They're good to work with.
Stand by to rehearse.
Several coaches were designed specifically for the film, each with a different purpose.
I've had to build 4 different coaches. The hero one's got brakes and it's got steering inside. We beef all the suspension up, we've made roll cages in it. And then there's the stunt one, there's the pyro one, and then there's the crashing one. Oh, 5 actually, there's one on the back of a flatbed truck, so we can actually put the artists on it and have them run up and down the set.
The range of stunts would include swordplay, coach transfers, and elaborate falls.
And then a bit of that wobbling thing with a leg over.
Nick Gillard, the stunt coordinator, is just fantastic. What's great about him is that he has a great sense of humor, and he allows that to sort of creep into his stunts.
Ichabod!
He's been knocked off the top of the coach and lands on the horseman's horse, but he lands on it the wrong way round.
It's the kind of stuff that the audience would be riveted to, and then something happens that's very funny. It's got a real life to it.
For Depp, the most physically demanding part of the sequence occurred after he is thrown from the coach.
They said take hold of this strap of leather and the horses are going to drag you, you know.
Here we go!
We don't want anything to happen to Johnny, so we put him in like bulletproof body armor underneath his costume. We tie him on, but through a quick release system, just in case anything goes wrong, he can release himself.
Stand by! Turn over!
Action!
It wasn't a problem being dragged by horses. The only thing I was slightly leery of was that they might, you know, sort of relieve themselves on the journey.
If you are wise, you will leave this place.
We are dealing with a madman.
Sleepy Hollow is a combination of horror, nightmare, and humor.
Good luck, sir. If you need me help, you call my name. Much appreciated.
It's tongue-in-cheek, at the same time scary.
Horseman!
There's action, and there's romance, and the darkness and the spookiness of a great old horror film. You got everything you need here.
Whatever you hear, keep away.
It's fun to work on something that inspired you your whole life.
No!
The power of fairy tales, folk tales, and horror movies is that if they're working, they hit you on an emotional level, and the best thing that could come out of it is sort of a great haunted feeling that's strong and remains with you.
There is a town upstate, 2 days' journey to the north in the Hudson Highlands. It is a place called Sleepy Hollow.
I was sent actually the script by the producers, Scott and Adam, and I just liked it. I mean, I had been working on something else for a year that didn't happen, and they sent me this script, and I just felt very, like, right about it. You know, I'd known the story, you know, since as a child, and seen the Disney cartoon and all, and loved aspects of that. And just there was something very powerful about the image of a headless horseman that is just extremely like a great fairy tale or folk tale symbol. It's got a lot of power to it. You know, I always like to play around with several different thematic things, but it's basically hopeful. And I mean, the Ichabod character, who's very sort of at odds with himself in a way, and in some ways it's about growth and acceptance and, you know, being open to things.
Tim has incredible insight into human behavior. He just understands the human animal very well.
I was so excited at the prospect of working with Tim. I've always loved his movies and always loved his style as a director and his aesthetic.
He's very into actors. He helps actors, good actors, director.
It takes a great director like Tim Burton to put it into a new level of fear and humor and storytelling. He just did such a great job. He made this surreal, unbelievable character, place, and time become unbelievably believable.
Constable Crane! Ichabod Crane, is that you? None other.
My initial idea was that we could go with some prosthetics, you know, and do that sort of snipe nose of Ichabod Crane, you know, the legendary Ichabod Crane, and the big ears and the, you know, long hands and arms and stuff.
You know, I know Johnny would have liked to have done that in a way, but we felt like, you know, rather than going too extreme with that, we just let it happen in the character. So we tried to keep all of those character traits that are Ichabod, you know, the sort of eccentricity, the squeamishness, the sort of edginess of that character intact.
Tim, in fact, was very smart in thinking that we didn't need it, you know, that there were other ways, you know. And I think ultimately he was right to show an Ichabod Crane who, on the surface, is kind of stoic and likes to think of himself as a sort of a manly man. But in fact, inside he's a very fragile, sensitive, flawed. Ichabod is a bit, I thought of him almost as like a pre-pubescent young girl in a way. He's crumbling. I mean, he's just a wreck.
Murder needs no ghost come from the grave. We have murders in New York without benefit of ghouls and goblins.
You're a long way from New York, Constable. We've had such fun. Johnny's a terrific actor. He's so on the ball and knows what he's doing and is amusing and funny. He's a good comedian. I think that's the thing people like to find surprising when they see this movie, how funny Johnny is in it.
It was a headless horseman.
You must not excite yourself.
But it was a headless horseman.
Of course it was. That's why you're here.
No, you must believe me. It was a horseman, a dead one. Headless.
I know.
You don't know because you were not there. It's all true.
Well, of course it is. I told you. Everyone told you.
I saw him.
I love working with Johnny. Johnny is so kind and such an amazing actor, and he takes risks and does things that other actors wouldn't do just because of their vanity. He's willing to make a complete fool out of himself for the performance. I think Katrina's very romantic, very naive, believes in love at first sight. She's sort of like the princess waiting for her prince to arrive. Is it Theodore?
No, pardon, miss, I am only a stranger.
Then have a kiss on account. And she kisses him with the blindfold on. It shows how open-hearted she is and how naive she is and loving. She has no idea who this person is, but she's still gonna kiss them.
It felt to me as though that we're some kind of a kismet or some sort of a destiny, kind of a sense of a person before you can even see them.
And also, of course, the power of them being drawn together when she can't even see him.
Halt and turn, I have a pistol aimed. Katrina, I might have killed you. Why have you come?
Because no one else would go with you.
I'm now twice the man.
She's just got such a quality, it's almost like a silent movie star, you know, where you can be completely still and look at you, and you don't know what she's thinking. She was really good at that and has quite a presence that way.
The dialogue certainly demands a more grandiose performance than I'm used to giving. But you also have to be careful, because you could go way far over the line. This land we're looking at was Van Garrett land, given to my father when I was in swaddling clothes. The Van Garretts were the richest family around these parts. My father worked hard for his family and prospered and built this house, and I owe my happiness to him. It was a bit of a challenge for me. Also, I'm very modern and American. I'm very much a teenager, so it was difficult and different for me to have to concentrate so much on changing the way I spoke.
Father saw the horseman kill you.
He saw the horseman come towards me with his sword unsheathed. But it is I who govern the horseman, my dear. And Baltus did not stay to watch.
Miranda's amazing. Miranda's such a great actress. And so in this movie, she's perfect.
She's, you know, seeking justice for the wrongs that were done to her family. And one of the things about the movie is cause and effect, whether that's, you know, how things happen or whether there are random elements and, you know, the world of reason and the world of fantasy and imagination.
I think she really steals the movie, actually.
The horseman comes! And tonight he comes for you!
My favorite scene in the movie was definitely the fight sequence. I liked that a lot. It was a lot of fun to do, and it was a lot of fun to be a part of. The very first night, they don't really know all about this, but we're battling, and I have these two scythes with the handles here and the blades are right here, and I have to shuck that, you know, it's used to shuck hay, but I grab them and I go after this horseman. Johnny tries to stop me because the horseman isn't after us, but I say I'll get him anyhow, and I go after him and I start battling. Well, we've rehearsed it so much and we're all prepared, but the horseman has a sword with a big handle and an axe with a big handle, and Johnny has the big handle with the blade on the end of it, so they can whack away, but mine are right there, so my hands were getting hit all the time. One of the very first shots, the sword came down, or the axe came down and cracked my finger and broke it. And it turned black right away, and I just reset it real quick there because I was thinking, even though at this point in time in the movie I get cut in half, I didn't want my part to get cut in half. I'm in a Tim Burton film, I'm with Johnny Depp, and I'm in this great sequence, so I suffered through it, so that was kind of fun.
My favorite scene is in the church when Michael has his big dramatic breakdown. Such a funny person that I loved watching him do that.
There's a conspiracy here, and I will shake it out!
I also loved doing that scene, getting to scream, be really dramatic.
When I get that thing through me, that made me laugh. It's frightening, but I know what's going to happen anyway. That's my favorite bit.
When you walk onto a set that Tim's made, it's extremely magical and, of course, very quiet, as in the case of the wood, because it's not a real wood. We're in a soundstage, so there are no birds, nothing. So that kind of makes it creepy, but reinforces everything that's happening in the movie anyway, because it's you know, it's like another world. It's just very exciting to see his drawings, his beautiful drawings, realized in full, you know, as in the case of the windmill.
You know, it was a difficult set to shoot because it was like straight up in a way. So, but it was fun. I mean, you know, the sets all had a great texture to them, and I think that helps. It just helps everything. It helps the actors. It helps the mood of the piece because you could feel it kind of right there, you know. And so it's exciting. I had the opportunity to work with some great artists. You know, these people, you know, very, very good in terms of texture and in terms of, you know, because we had the concepts, did some designs on them and stuff, but when aging and painting and all of that is just so crucial to it. You know, it's just it makes it come alive.
What manner of instruments are these?
Some of my own design.
There was one contraption that I fell in love with, which was in the It was in the scene, in the courtroom scene with Christopher Lee. In that scene, there's a guy strapped in this horrible device with claws around him, and I kept that. I got that.
Until you really get there on the set, you know, because it's a fantasy and everything is created, you really don't know exactly what is exactly going to happen. In The Death of Magistrate Phillips, we sort of choreographed that, just that right there on the spot. So, you know, it was like there was a lot of improvisation in terms of staging because of the way we had to shoot it.
Oh my God!
I love scary movies. I love that feeling, that adrenaline rush, and that feeling of jumping out of your skin and grabbing the person next to you.
Cleave together. That would be a good moral. Cleave together.
Don't lose your head.
Keep your head on.
The moral of the story is when Tim Burton asks you to do a film, do it.
Cut.